Theory by Jason Delgado and William Calero. Chapter 2. Out of the Wilderness into the Wild. The sun shone brightly over the bustling streets of Los Angeles, California. Traffic and crowds filled downtown, the air buzzing with energy. A bus pulled up to the corner of Wilshire Boulevard, releasing a steady stream of passengers onto the sidewalk. One of them was a man in a hooded sweatshirt, a backpack slung over his shoulder. Jake Castillo. He moved with purpose, his gaze lifting to take in the imposing white and black facade of 1 Wilshire Boulevard. He had finally arrived. His journey from the secluded, off-the-grid camp to the sprawling metropolis of Los Angeles felt like stepping through a portal between worlds. The cacophony of city life with its relentless pace and blaring sounds was a stark contrast to the serene, primal silence he had known. Jake made his way through the crowd, slipping into an alleyway on the opposite side of the building. He scanned his surroundings, his eyes searching for any sign of a discreet entrance. There was no obvious doors, no marked access points, nothing that would indicate a way inside. He stood in the narrow alleyway, the towering building looming above him, its shadow swallowing him whole. For the first time, a sinking feeling crept in. What if all of this had been for nothing? He was about to turn back when a flash of movement snagged his attention, something shifting behind a pile of damp, rotting garbage. A faint scrap of metal against the concrete. He froze, eyes narrowing as he focused on the source. The sewer cap, once firmly in place, began to wobble, emitting a low metallic groan. Slowly, with a deliberate and unsettling precision, it slid aside, revealing the dark mouth of the tunnel beneath. From the shadowy void emerged something entirely unexpected. A large, rather imposing dog-like machine. Its metallic limbs clicked softly against the pavement as it climbed out, the faint whir of servos filling the silence. Its body gleamed faintly, patches of smooth silver casing glinting in the dim light, while its joints hummed with an almost organic fluidity. A pair of LED eyes blinked to life, casting a calm, soothing blue glow. The robot froze mid-step, its head swerving toward Jake with an unsettling, lifelike smoothness. For a moment, neither moved. Then came the sound of a series of beeps and chirps, rapid and melodic, like a synthetic approximation of a dog's bark. The noises felt oddly communicative, almost as if it were trying to speak. Jake's pulse quickened as the machine cocked its head, emitting a soft whir that reminded him of curiosity. Or was it calculation? It beeped again, louder this time, and took a tentative step forward. The motion was precise, yet unnatural, like watching a living thing trapped in a machine's body. Without warning, it turned sharply, glancing back at him before producing another burst of electronic sounds. Jake wondered if it was urging him to follow. The oddity of the scene struck him hard. A robotic dog, of all things, emerging from the sewers like some futuristic stray, its intentions a mystery. He hesitated, caught between the strangeness of the moment and the undeniable pull of its mechanic beckoning. Jake hesitated, glancing around the alley. The place was deserted. He stepped closer, watching as the robot moved aside, gesturing towards the open sewer. It was an invitation, and he had come too far to turn back now. Taking a deep breath, Jake approached the sewer cap, gripping the edges of the ladder and descending into the darkness below. The robot followed, the sound of the cap sliding shut echoing through the narrow passage. The air was damp and cold, the sound of dripping water reverberating off the concrete walls. The robotic dog, as tall as a Great Dane, yet built with the heavy mass of a mastiff, now on the ground, activated a light attached to its back, casting a bright beam that illuminated the dark tunnel. As the light swept over the walls, Jake caught sight of a name etched into the metal frame of the machine. Fedor. "Hey, Fedor," Jake muttered, giving the robot a skeptical look. In response, Fedor turned towards him, its light shining directly in his face. Jake winced, throwing up his hands to shield his eyes. The robot made a sympathetic chiming noise and lowered the beam as if apologizing. A voice crackled from a speaker on the robot's side, a young girl's voice, cheerful and curious. "Hey, you knew its name." Jake paused, a bit taken aback. "It's written on the side." The girl laughed. "Theory was right. You are smart." Jake pondered. "Theory?" "Yeah," the voice replied, the amusement evident. "Just follow Fidor, and you'll see." Jake eyed the robot, then spoke, his tone cautious. "Are you the one who sent the letter?" "I did. Well, sort of," the girl said. "Come on, I can show you." Jake hesitated. "Are you controlling that thing remotely?" "Oh, no," she replied. "Fidor's completely autonomous. I just tapped into his vision and auditory sensors. Pretty cool, right?" Jake shook his head, a reluctant smile tugging at his lips. "Yeah, pretty cool." Fidor moved forward, its guiding light cutting through the dim, fetid darkness of the sewer. The beam swept across the curved walls, revealing slick patches of moss and rivulets of murky water flowing towards an unseen destination. Jake followed closely, his steps cautious and his ears attuned to every faint drip and distant echo. The deeper they ventured, the heavier the air grew with a pungent mix of damp earth and decay. Ahead, the robot paused, its glowing blue eyes narrowing as if scrutinizing something. They had arrived at a narrow fissure in the wall, nearly invisible against the shadows. Fidor tilted his head, emitting a soft beep, and moved toward the gap with a practiced ease. Jake hesitated for a moment, squeezing his shoulders through the tight opening, the rough stone edges grazing his jacket. On the other side, the space opened into a slightly wider passage. Fidor slowed as they approached what appeared to be a dead end, a smooth, unbroken wall of concrete stretching across their path. Jake stopped in confusion at the apparent barrier, but then the wall shimmered. It began to ripple like the surface of a pond disturbed by a single drop of water, the solid appearance dissolving into a translucent veil. His breath caught as he stepped closer. The illusion wasn't just light playing tricks. It was a holographic projection, the edges almost imperceptible, blending seamlessly with the surrounding structure. Tiny refracted rainbows fluctuating at the boundaries where the projected image met reality, suggesting some advanced technology far beyond anything Jake had seen before. Fidor didn't pause. The robot marched through the rippling barrier with the same confident purpose, its metallic frame disappearing into the mirage. Jake reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing the surface. It was cool and intangible, like walking through a curtain of mist. Summoning his nerves, he stepped forward. On the other side, he emerged into a hidden clearing, a space that shouldn't have existed in the confines of the sewer. The air felt different, lighter, and faintly tinged with ozone. At the center of the clearing stood a cylindrical structure about the size of an elevator, large enough to accommodate 2 or 3 people. Its surface was dull and matte, showing no signs of corrosion or rust, as though the material defied the damp environment around it. The faint glow of Fidor's lights skimmed across it, highlighting its worn yet resilient texture. Jake's gaze swept over it, his mind racing to make sense of what he was seeing. This wasn't just hidden, it was otherworldly. Fidor approached the tube, and the door slid open with a quiet hiss. The robot settled at the entrance, waiting patiently. Jake took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the unusual contraption. Everything about this was strange. He stepped inside, the door closing behind him. The tube began to move, a rapid descent that sent a rush of adrenaline through Jake's veins. He could feel the speed, the sensation of being pulled deeper underground. Finally, the motion ceased, and the door slid open once more. Jake stepped out of the tube, his eyes adjusting to the dim light of the chamber ahead. He had no idea what awaited him, but he was ready to find out. Jake emerged into an underground room with cold metal walls that reflected the sterile glow of LED lighting. The room was small, utilitarian. A computer terminal stood against one wall, with a table and metal chairs placed in the center. The air smelt faintly of oil and machinery, with a low hum of electricity permeating the space. A door on the opposite side of the room slid open, and in walked a girl no older than 20. Her skin was a rich brown, of Indian descent. Her dark hair streaked with purple, and her outfit, a mashup of punk rock style and practicality, made her look like she could easily fit in with a band or a hacker collective. Despite her appearance, her eyes held a focus that suggested intelligence and determination. Her expression carried an awkward confidence as she entered. The robot dog, Fidor, immediately ran to her as she crouched down, rubbing its head and belly. "Who's a good doggy?" she exulted, her affection for the machine evident. She looked up, her gaze locking on Jake as she rose to her feet. "Hey, you must be Jake Castillo," she said, her voice casual but with a hint of excitement. "I'm Joshi. I'm part of the reason you're here. Thanks for making it." Jake's eyes narrowed as he studied her, his instincts still wary. "How did you find me?" he asked. "Oh, I didn't find you," Joshi remarked. "Theory did. I just put together the drone, designed the flight system, created the puzzle with the golden—" "Who is Theory?" Jake interrupted, his frustration evident. "You're about to find out," Joshi replied with excitement. "I just came in here to say hi and see if you needed a water or something." "I'm fine," Jake said curtly. "What the hell is going on here?" Joshi raised her eyebrows, clearly picking up on his mood. "Right, gotcha," she said, her tone light. "I can see you're not in the best mood. I'll leave you to it." With that, she and Fidor left the room, the door sliding closed behind them. Jake watched her go, his mind buzzing with questions. Suddenly, a large screen mounted on the wall came to life, its edges smooth and seamless, blending into the surroundings like a portal to another world. A faint hum filled the air as the display powered to life. On the screen, a glowing blue orb appeared, hovering weightless against the black backdrop. Pulses of energy rippled across the surface in rhythm with its synthetic voice. Each word sent sound waves radiating across the screen, creating a mesmerizing visual pattern, like a digital heartbeat brought to life. "Hello, Jake," the orb said, its voice calm yet laced with an uncanny warmth that seemed out of place for something so clearly artificial. "My name is Theory. Thank you for coming. I am an AI construct, a system designed for research probability analysis and contingency planning." Jake's heart raced as the orb spoke. His eyes flicked between the rippling waves of light and the faint flitter of pixels on the screen. Something about this felt unreal. He crossed his arms, his frustration simmering beneath his otherwise guarded demeanor. "How did you find me? And what is all this?" he asked, his tone sharp. The orb's glow intensified for a moment, like an intake of breath before answering. "You had a shipment sent to a P.O. box off an island off the coast of Nova Scotia," Theory replied, its voice steady and unperturbed. "It was under the name Edwin Castillo, your missing brother's name. We spent the next 2 years using drones to map the forest near the island, and eventually, one of them found you." The emotions rose unbidden, grief, guilt, and anger all jostling for space. His voice hardened as he asked, "Why go through all that trouble? Why do you want me here?" The blue light at the orb's core began to pulse, subtle at first, then growing more insistent with each syllable it spoke. "I am an independent data curator, a large language model processing system. I was designed to examine conspiracy theories, commonly believed myths, and measure their probability. I have been researching conspiracy theories for what would be the equivalent of 5,000 of your years. Jake's skepticism deepened as he stared at the glowing projection. He wasn't sure what disturbed him more, the absurdity of an AI with a personality, or the idea that it had spent millennia unraveling the same paranoid threads people like his brother debated on late-night forums. But what gnawed at him the most was the lingering question, why him? And in my research, Theory continued, its tone growing heavier, almost solemn, I have found something that has put the world and all of humanity in grave danger. Something I believe your brother Edwin was trying to stop. His brother's name wasn't something he heard often, let alone in a place like this. So who designed you? He asked, trying to keep the bitterness out of his voice. That girl with the robot dog? Joshi did not design me, Theory replied without hesitation. My creator is unknown. Unknown? How am I supposed to believe any of this? He gestured at the screen, his voice laced with exasperation. Why don't you tell me what you know about my brother? It's the only reason I'm here, Jake demanded, suspicion evident in his tone. The orb's rippling waves slowed for a moment, as if carefully choosing its next words. Your brother Edwin was not merely missing. He disappeared because he was uncovering truths that most of humanity is not ready to face. Truths that even now threaten to unravel the fragile systems keeping the world stable. Jake stared at the orb, its glow unwavering, its words sinking deeper into his consciousness. The frustration in his chest was giving way to something far more unsettling, curiosity, edged with dread. Theory's light dimmed for a moment before it spoke again, its tone almost contemplative. Truth has a cost, and I need your skills and leadership ability to help get to the bottom of what I believe your brother was trying to uncover. As it spoke, the screen shifted, displaying pictures of Edwin, images of his research team, of their ship, the Olympus. Your brother was not only an online personality, he was part of an expedition to the Arctic Circle, Theory said, the images displaying across the screen. The official reason was to study the rate of ice collapse and map the geological changes taking place. But while there, he encountered members of an organization who wanted to keep something hidden. Jake leaned forward, his pulse quickening. What did he find? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Theory hesitated before responding. The end of the world. Jake felt led on. He shook his head, incredulous. What are you talking about? The people responsible for your brother's disappearance are part of an organization with influence in all branches of government, politics, and social order, Theory said. They are known as the Front Office. Your brother got too close to something they were protecting. Jake's face hardened. How do you know all this? I thought you were designed to debunk conspiracy theories. The screen changed again, showing images of Jake during his time in the Navy, photos of him with his team, footage of his trial, where he had been dishonorably discharged. Jake felt his throat tighten, his fists clenching at his sides. I looked into your brother's research and watched his videos. He was onto something, and you knew it. Edwin was discharged from the Navy and then became a civilian online conspiracy personality before going missing. When you asked the Navy for help in investigating what happened to him, they said no. So you did it anyway. Suddenly, you were dishonorably discharged, blackballed, and outcast. All because you asked the wrong questions, Theory said, its voice unwavering. What was he looking for? That's classified intel, Jake shot back, his voice laced with anger. How did you... That's why you vanished into the wilderness, Theory interrupted. Into oblivion. You may not believe in any of this, but you know someone's hiding something. I'm asking you to trust that feeling, and to trust me. You're not even real, Jake muttered, his voice laced with equal parts frustration and disbelief. Theory's light flared brighter, the pulsing glow almost mimicking the pulse of a heartbeat. I'm real enough to get you here, it said, its tone calm but with a faint edge of challenge. And I'm real enough to tell you what you don't want to know. Jake's eyes narrowed further, the words landing like a gauntlet thrown at his feet. He leaned forward slightly, his shadow stretching across the metallic floor. And what's that? He asked, his voice low, his tone carrying the weight of a man who wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. The truth, Theory replied. Maybe you're afraid to find out. The words hit like a sucker punch, sharp and precise. Jake inhaled sharply through his nose, his body instinctively stiffening. Deep down he knew there was some truth to the accusation, an uncomfortable reality he had spent years burying beneath layers of deflection and survival. For a fleeting moment he said nothing. The air was heavy between them. The low hum of machinery filled the silence, a subtle reminder of the alien environment he now found himself in. Finally he exhaled, his lips curving into a tight, humorless smile. For a piece of software, you got a lot of nerve, he said, his tone a mix of defiance and begrudging acknowledgement. He crossed his arms over his chest, the movement deliberate, as though shielding himself from the implications of what Theory was saying. So what's the deal? I help you with some mission and you point me in the right direction? Is that it? Theory's tone shifted to something almost conciliatory. I'm hoping we can find the right direction together, it said, the deliberate cadence of its words carrying a gravity that Jake wasn't expecting. For a moment, Jake simply stared at the orb, his mind a whirlwind of skepticism, resentment, and something dangerously close to hope. The idea of working with this strange, unearthly intelligence unsettled him, but the quiet sincerity in its words sparked something in him, a pang of curiosity, a hint of purpose. And though he hated to admit it, that part of him was something he hadn't felt in a long time. The screen changed once more, displaying images of people, men and women of various ages, ethnicities, and backgrounds, a team of individuals, each one different yet somehow all connected. One of the pictures was of Jake himself. With you leading a team of scientists and engineers, Theory continued, conspiracy theorists who believe what probability-wise I know to be true. Someone is trying to destroy our world, and no one is trying to stop them. Anyone who does is eliminated, like your brother. We're all that's left, and we need you. Jake stared at the images, his mind racing. He could feel the pull of the temptation to walk away from everything he built for himself, but also the unmistakable pull of purpose. He looked back at the blue orb, his decision made. So, who is this team? He asked. Thank you for listening, and buy your copy of Theory today, available on Amazon. Copyright 2025, Jason Delgado and William Calero, all rights reserved.